Hello everyone, how are you all doing? I'm really happy to be back. Some of you may know I stopped posting on YouTube because of chronic fatigue about 3 years ago, and it's taken me 2.5 years to recover. I wanted to come back sooner, but things transpired against me. So this video is about using medical medium during that time to get back on my feet, and what I think about it as a healing guide. And at the end, I'm going to quickly tell you about what I've got planned for this channel now that I'm back. Before I get started, I'm going to say, this is my experience. I can only speak for myself, and it's not going to be the same for everyone. So before we start anything new for your health, do your research, speak to your healthcare provider. I mean, you're worth it, right? So for me, before I tried medical medium, I'd tried a lot of different ways of eating for my health. I tried paleo, elimination diets, low fructose, you name it. And I've seen so many health practitioners and alternative and mainstream over the last 20 years that I've lost count. So my health story goes a little like this. I was born with a disease called Ehlers Danlos, which is a connective tissue disorder. One of the main problems I had before I got chronic fatigue was chronic constipation. I had it for about 20 years, and it was so bad that I'd needed operations for a chronic fissure, and it also ended up in A&E in 3 different countries with impaction, which is no fun, I can tell you. I spent so much money trying to fix it over the years, getting endoscopies, colonoscopies, barium tests. I've had just about every bowel test there is, and I got diagnosed in the end with IBS and given a drug called Resolor, which didn't really work for me. I also had fibroids, which would make my period a living hell every month and just wipe me out for weeks. About 10 years ago, I started to feel tired, needing to sleep on the weekends after being put through a chelation protocol and having my amalgam fillings replaced. I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And then it was just like a really downhill journey for me. I went down to part-time work as I couldn't cope with full-time, and I did that for a couple of years until I could no longer function. I was then diagnosed with chronic fatigue. Alongside the fatigue, I also had been diagnosed with hypothyroid and adrenal issues. I'd put on 24 pounds as if that wasn't enough of an insult, and I was told that I would probably also have fibromyalgia because I had all the symptoms. So I lived with severe neural pain in my back and shoulders, and my body would feel like it was on fire. And then severe fatigue that made me feel drunk all the time. I had these really heavy long periods and chronic constipation. And if I say it was uncomfortable, being an understatement really, miserable better sums it up for me. I started to believe that I was never going to recover through all that. And then a friend introduced me to medical medium in January 2018, and I thought it looked really interesting. It gave me some explanation of why I was so ill, because no one else could. I mean, I just thought my body was faulty. So I looked at the food he recommended, and it wasn't that far off what I'd already been eating for 3 years as a vegan. I've got to say, I was a bit skeptical about the whole spirit thing, and I used to work as a researcher, so evidence was always important to me. But when you get to this point, you really are running out of options. And I was so confused about how to eat to get better because I've been given so much contradictory advice over the years. No fruit, eat fruit. No dairy, eat dairy. Low fat, high fat. So I decided I'll give it a try, and I started with the thyroid program. It was celery juice in the morning and cucumber juice in the evening, and then whole foods for the rest of the day. At this time also my ferritin and calcium levels were super low, so I increased my greens. I cut out soy and corn, and I'd been gluten-free for a long time already, so no changes needed there. And I noticed some improvements. I felt a bit better than I had in a while. I could feel my energy improving. This was after about a month, and I really enjoyed the food, especially the fruit, because I hadn't really eaten much fruit in 20 years. And I didn't go fully raw. I just added in a bit of raw food. I also got my forage on, and I started foraging for nettles and dandelions in a local square. And I found that really great. And then I added in the heavy metal detox smoothie a couple of months later. And I reckon if I'd just been doing this and had nothing else going in my life, I reckon I'd have recovered in about a year. But of course, every good story has its twists and turns. And for me, I was having a lot of dentistry to repair my teeth after some bad work a couple of years before. So what would happen is I'd feel great, and then I'd feel really bad, and it would go on for months. And during this time, I also lost all the minerals in my teeth, and I started having lots of cavities and silent reflux. And it would take almost the rest of the year to recover from that. And then September 2018, I started to feel much better. I was starting to go out a little and could see some light at the end of the tunnel. But because I'd had so much dental work, I ended up with bad TMJ, which is temporomandibular joint. They did some blood tests, and my iron and calcium levels were back in the high level for the range, and my thyroid markers had returned to normal, which made me realize my diet was okay, but I didn't know what was wrong with me. I was having a lot of pain and dizziness, and my energy just absolutely flatlined. And it was during this time that I really started to experience a lot of anxiety, because no one could tell me what was keeping me sick. So I got really depressed as well. What I found was healing, if it's difficult, can be really traumatic. And I think I just got to a point where I really lost faith and hope in ever getting better. I didn't know what to do, but I remembered a friend recommending EFT, or emotional freedom technique, and telling me that it calms the body and reduces cortisol. So I decided I'd look for a practitioner and deal with some of the trauma that I'd been experiencing. I had got so low that it took nearly a year of daily EFT and eating medical medium for my energy to come back. And I found that combining the two helped me get out of being stressed all the time, also allowed me to nourish my body. And I'd say today I'm about 80% recovered from my health issues. So I still get some flares, particularly around my period with pain, but nothing like it used to be. And that good old 20-year-old constipation is gone, which, I mean, I am happy every day thinking about that. And I've also shifted a bit of weight. And I'm still doing medical medium because I just find it an easy way to eat now. So I'm now reclaiming my life piece by piece, just as this virus hits us. I've always had great timing. And I'm now focused on improving my endurance, building some muscles, which is hard with Ehlers Danlos, but, I'm getting on with it. I'm also retrained as an energy techniques with EFT practitioner, and I'm helping other people with chronic illness navigate the ups and downs of healing and deal with all the emotional mess that came before it. There's often a lot that goes on before we get ill. So what do I think of medical medium? Well, it works if you do it in a balanced way. It worked for me, and I'd been sick for a really long time, and I never thought I would get better. There's a lot of information. I like the way he provides books that lay a lot of the stuff out about the environmental toxins. It's easy to understand, and it's in one place. It's interesting because my dad was a heavy metals miner when I was a child, and I grew up part of my life in a heavily polluted mining town. And I'd always had periods of fatigue throughout my life. I remember a year at university when I'd fallen asleep in all my lectures, and I got tested for loads of viruses at that time and nothing came up. And my mother had also had chronic fatigue, so it made a lot of sense. His thing is pretty straightforward. The rules are simple. Avoid corn, soy, pork, eggs, dairy and wheat, and eat whole foods. Add in some herbs and supplements, and You know, it's so much easier than elimination diets that I've done in the past. I really like the community as well. There's a lot of practitioners now who support the medical medium way of eating. They've got cleansers, and they also help people put the information into practice. And then there's some great Facebook groups as well that provide a way for everyone to support each other, because you need support. And there's a lot of free information. So he's always putting up free recipes, tips, and other bits of information on all the socials, which is great, you know. It made me feel really validated and empowered. Unless you've actually experienced chronic illness, it's difficult to really understand, and I certainly didn't before I experienced it. So for me, I found the descriptions really validating, helped me to feel understood, and the information also allows you to take things into your own hands. And that's so important when you're told that your condition is for life or incurable. And I personally think that that alone can make a big difference to somebody's ability to heal. And lastly, it's easy to follow if you're a vegan. I'm an ethical vegan, and some doctors told me I couldn't recover eating a plant-based diet. I didn't believe them, but with medical medium it's possible, which is great. It can be expensive. Fruit, particularly tropical fruit in the UK, is expensive, and the supplements recommended are really good quality, but good quality supplements do cost a lot of money. And at one point, I think I was spending about £200 a month, which is really hard when I hadn't worked for many years. It can be open to interpretation a little. I've seen some people really struggling to incorporate things or incorporating too much to the point that it becomes overwhelming. I did it a bit myself at the beginning. I don't think he plans for people to go down this route, but it's a trap you can easily fall into. You can go all in too quickly as well. So if you've always eaten a SAD diet, the 28-day cleanse, which is a raw food, fat-free plan, it's not really the best place for you to start. Your body can go absolutely haywire with such a big change. I also found this with the supplements. Too many, and it's really not so good. I think it can be a little bit difficult to know where to draw the line, particularly if you've been sick for a long time. I mean, I know what it's like. You just want it to be over. And it's because you come from that place, really hard to know where to start. It's really hard to eat out, well, at least I found it. I stopped eating out when I started medical medium because I'd given up beans and grains as well. I know that there is a good resource that people are starting to create, which is going to tell you where you can eat out, which should be wonderful. And I'm looking to tap into that when it goes out there. It can be a lot of work. Juicing is hard work just on its own. So for me, I had to keep everything really simple. Just steamed potatoes, smoothies, salads. I just didn't have the time or the energy for all the meal prep, particularly as my fatigue got worse. The emphasis on the emotional side of healing can be overlooked because the bulk of the books are about food, supplements, and toxins. I mean, it covers emotional stuff in the book, but it's not really all of what people deal with. I understand it's got there's a lot to go into because we're complex emotional beings. And I do really appreciate the message that he pushes across, which is you did not manifest your illness. I think that's so important because chronically ill, we get guilt tripped like it's our fault this happened to us. Like somehow we would will ourselves ill. It can be really upsetting and frustrating. The other thing is the angels didn't really speak to me, and I'd already spent a lot of time in nature. I just found that I needed extra help with the trauma I'd experienced in my life and as a result of this ill health. So I think it needs more emphasis. I've seen people in the medical medium groups following everything to the letter but still sick because they've got some emotional issues which impact how they deal with stress. I can completely relate to it. It's natural to grieve your old life and be scared by symptoms. I found I didn't trust anything or anyone. So while I stayed on medical medium, I always had a thought in the back of my mind when I felt bad that I was missing something, and that in itself was stressful. Without working on those things, learning to trust, releasing trauma and old habits I'd got from childhood, spending that time in nature, which is gold, and changing my beliefs about myself and my body, I don't think I could have moved forward. Any stress in your life can be a weight on your body and diverts attention from its healing abilities. So in addition to medical medium, I read some mind-body books by Bruce Lipton, David Hamilton, and I also checked out Kim Duramo on YouTube. They really understand how it all fits together. And that's one of the reasons I retrained, so I could help other people do the same, to support their body's ability to heal. Because stress and anxiety are really the opposite of healing. In spite of the cons with medical medium, which I think are minor compared with the benefits, potentially getting your life back, I think it's great. If you've tried everything like I had and feel that you've run out of options, it's definitely worth a try. And, as long as you work on your emotional health too, and get yourself to a point that you believe you can heal, because you can. You can heal. I did it. And if you're watching this and you're not sure if you can heal, let me just say that I came from a very dark place, and healing is possible for all of us, and it is our right. So what does this mean for the channel now? Well, I'm not so focused on food anymore, as you can well imagine. I'm focused more on the emotional side of health. So this channel's going to be taking a little bit of a detour. Probably we're at a definite permanent fork in the road, and we're going to take it off in a different direction. I'm going to focus on the emotional side of health, stress-related problems and how to navigate them. And I'm going to introduce EFT to this channel and do some tapping with you and teach you some of the fundamentals of maintaining your own health from an emotional side. And I'm really pleased to be back and seeing all your lovely faces. I can just imagine you all. And I'm hoping that you stick around, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.